Hey guys, welcome back to another lesson with Cody here. It's Aviation. Technically today is actually not a lesson. It is more a story time and just some realizations I've had in my pilot training. So I'm going to title this video Top 10 Realizations from Helicopter Pilot Training. Number one being that they can land without the engine. Prior to pilot training, I actually thought they would actually just fall like a rock if the engine failed or if anything else went wrong, that you're totally screwed. But that's actually not the case. They can land just fine without one, and I've done it more than once. So I found out the hard way that number two, check rides are quite difficult. I actually managed to fail pretty much every one of my check rides on a single point most of the time. Next we have written exams are not nearly as difficult. They only require about a 70% pass rate, and I managed to pass every one of those on the first attempt. Next we have low-paying work. So you sort of assume that once you get a job as a helicopter pilot, even as a new helicopter pilot, that you would be making decent bucks, but that is not the case. My very first job, working around Portland, doing tours, I was only making $12 an hour as a helicopter pilot. Alright, next we have poor maintenance issues. So prior to pilot training, I actually never realized that helicopters break down all the time. There's always something going wrong with them. Not necessarily anything super critical, but they are very finicky machines and always in need of more maintenance. Number 6, how many foreign students there are up in the air. So once you start training, you'll realize that probably at least 2/3 of the students, especially at the large flight schools, are Chinese or foreign of some sort, which is rather impressive considering that they barely speak the language in the first place, and yet they are still getting that pilot training. Number 7, the helicopter pilots love guns. So when I was finishing my flight training and doing my CFI flight training, my instructor was helping me build my resume and was talking about what interests I should disclose on there and which ones I shouldn't. And his opinion was that dancing was too frou-frou, but that instead I should put shooting as one of my interests. Kind of controversial perhaps, especially compared to dancing, but that's what he suggested, and I found that to hold pretty true, that most helicopter pilots actually love guns and shooting sports quite a bit. Next one, number 8, that helicopters are not standardized. So, unlike cars, helicopters are probably more dissimilar than they are similar. As a prime example, US-made helicopters have a counterclockwise rotating main rotor system when viewed from above. But if you go abroad to something like Eurocopter, it actually has the opposite. It has a clockwise rotating main rotor system when viewed from above. And so if you can imagine, the anti-torque pedals are totally opposite depending on whether you're flying Eurocopter or US-made aircraft like the Robinson. Next is number 9. I was very surprised. Well, I had assumed that prior to starting pilot training that you would need some higher education, a college degree, something of that sort, in order to get your pilot's license. It was sort of a pie-in-the-sky situation, and never thought I could actually be a pilot, let alone a flight instructor. I remember telling my friend that I wanted to become a pilot and was going to start training soon, and he totally disbelieved that I was going to finish training. I don't know what that says about my friend, but there you go. Alright, so number 10 is the realization that once you're done with all your flight training, you take your check ride, and they ask all kinds of information and ask you to do all kinds of calculations that pilots tend to stop doing once they graduate and get their pilot certificate and start flying professionally or recreationally. But I have run into a number of situations firsthand, especially with weight and balance calculations. Overweight passengers and their craft just ends up significantly misbalanced or overweight or something to that extent, and it just gets real tricky trying to fly on trial and error without the calculations. So definitely check your performance charts and be very familiar with those. All right, I'll see you guys next Thursday. All right, bye.